Okay, I will call this special meeting of the Attleboro School Committee to order, Monday, June 29th, 2020. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session. The Attleboro School Committee will convene an executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 2 and 3, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Ms. Porto?
Yes.
Mr. Domenici?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Okay, and the school committee will reconvene in executive session following, will reconvene in open session following the executive session. All right, so I'll see everyone in a minute. We'll be back. Okay, welcome back to the Attleboro School Committee meeting, and we will reconvene our open session. And with that, we'll start with the report of the superintendent, Mr. Sawyer.
Chairman, I have one brief update for the committee tonight. We are working on a survey for families so we can get input on how people are planning on handling the guidance that the state shared with us last week. And we'll be using that data in our planning. So that is in development, and we hope to have that out this week. But as soon as we can get that out to families, that'll be the way that we get some input from the community on how people feel about things. So other than that, I'm ready to turn it over unless there are any other questions about the guidance. Mr. Hill?
Sorry, it'll be electronic survey? Is that right?
Yes, it'll be, we're using our partner Hanover to develop a survey. So it'll be the same kind of platform as the survey we used for remote learning.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I don't see any. So the next item, Superintendent Sawyer, is the
I believe it's on.
budget.
I believe we're going to Ms. Singer.
Mr. Furtado?
I believe we're going to Ms. Singer for the contracts.
Good evening. Thank you. So this evening I have two contracts to bring forward to you for ratification. The first being the custodial contract. Do you want me to do both together? Or is he frozen?
Oh, you're muted, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Am I unmuted now? Okay. All right. I was frozen for a minute, but do we have a motion to approve the paraprofessionals contract?
So moved. Second.
All right. Is there any discussion or questions? Mr. Domenici?
Yeah, I apologize. I got a little frozen there. If we're talking about the paraprofessional contract, as I previously stated, due to a conflict, I have to recuse myself from tonight.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, I'm apologizing to everyone. I have to do this on my iPhone tonight, so I have to scroll through to see if anyone's commenting. So that's the reason for the delay, but I'm having some technical difficulties here tonight. But I don't see any questions or comments. So the motion's been made and seconded. So Mr. Withers votes yes. Mr. Storrs?
Jim's muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Domenici has recused himself. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Porto?
Yes.
All right, so that motion passes. And then my apologies, Ms. Singer. I froze when you were discussing the two contracts. So
That's okay.
what else are we voting on so we can all be on the same page?
Sure. So the first one you voted on, Paris. The second one is the custodial contract is also
Okay.
up for vote.
Yes. Is there any questions or comments on this specific contract proposal? All right, I don't see any. So Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Larson.
Mr. Chairman, we need to make a motion and a second.
Can we start this whole meeting over? All right, do we have a motion?
Sorry. Second.
All right, Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Domenici,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Geddes,
Yes.
Mr. Storrs,
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes.
Good catch, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Ms. Singer.
What you pay me for, Rob?
Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
He muted himself again.
All right, next on our agenda tonight, we have our proposed fiscal 21 budget. That I'll turn it over to Mr. Furtado.
Mark,
Mr. Furtado, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Just a couple of things. We've had some discussions on this, but I want to make the committee and make sure the community understands that the city of Attleboro has passed its municipal budget, of which our budget is a part of that. So that is done. We have an operating budget with which to commence July 1st with. In that context, the state of Massachusetts still has not given any indications one way or the other as to where they're heading with the state budget. So I believe the city has preparations in place to deal with, again, state budget cuts to a certain extent. Beyond that, as I said before, beyond what they're prepared for would be a problem for practically any community in the state of Massachusetts. So as we continue to wait to get some direction from the state, we feel good about where we kind of sit right now. We certainly expect there to be cuts. We're just hoping the cuts that do come are going to be manageable for the city and for the school department, as opposed to kind of beyond manageable. So the budget that was approved by the city for the school department totaled $81,795,620.46. That included slightly over $4 million in transportation costs.
Was there any differences in what the city council approved and what was provided to the school committee last week?
I believe the one change made by the council is they decided not to fund the special education stabilization fund that the mayor had proposed at a level of $200,000. Again, they decided it would be more prudent to wait to see what happens with state funding before providing those funds. We also had a capital project regarding Hill Roberts, Hyman Fine, and Thatcher parking lots being redone. That was also about $180,000 that was put on hold until the state level decisions are made. So those are major financial changes from what we have been talking about as a committee, second half of the year.
Are those items included in the number that you've given us tonight to vote on?
Neither of those items are in that number.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, I'll open it up for questions and comments or questions for Mr. Furtado. Again, bear with me as I have to scroll through all of you to determine who has questions. Mr. Storrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First I want to say that I said it last week and I'll say it again. It's a little concerning, a little dismayed that we still haven't heard from the state here we are, a week away, not even a couple of days away from July, and we have not heard from the state, which are when our new budget goes into place as of July 1st, and we still haven't heard from the state. That's just amazing to me. I do want to say thank you to the mayor and City Hall. The fact that they were able to give us the assurances that they did, I think that helps us a lot. It makes us feel a little bit better. And, although as we do every single year, the budgets that we put in for, the budgets that we are able to get, we know it's not going to fund everything. We know it's not going to be what we truly need. But in this difficult year, I'm very happy that we are where we are right now, especially when I'm reading about all these other districts with layoffs and so many other things going on. So, I feel like we're in a much better place. And, again, I want to say thank you to the mayor and City Hall for the assurances that have been given to us.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Geddes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And echoing Jim's point, there is still a lot of reason for concern, but also appreciate the optimism coming from the city on being able to cover everything we need. A couple of specific yet also general questions about different parts of the budget. It looked like there were a lot of decent sized shifts in some of the salary lines, including around elementary special education and guidance. Are those, so a couple questions on that front. One, are those new positions that we're hoping to be able to fund, presuming we don't have any cuts down the road? Or are those new programs and just shifts in resources based on the needs in each school?
Yeah, it's again, if you the 20 budget was constructed prior to the start of the year. There were shifts. I believe Willett in particular was one building that lost the program. We also had staff hired to avoid placements. So between those two things, you'll see, and that will be an annual event where it goes into the mixer a little bit. It's out different than it went in the prior year, just because of over the course of the year, a lot of decisions have to be made to kind of maintain our financial standing and do what's in the best interest of the student without losing them to an out-of-district placement.
And then my other the other thing that stood out to me as I looked through it were utility costs. In some buildings, those are jumping up a bit. In other buildings, they're being cut back a bit. Even in our sister buildings, like the changes at Brennan are more severe than the changes at Wamsutta. And I think at Hyman Fine, electricity is going down, but at Hill Roberts, it's going up. I know we've done a lot of energy efficiency changes to the buildings lately, but is there a reason for that?
So we are still trying to kind of balance the credits we receive for our solar agreements. They have come in too heavy in some buildings and too light in other buildings. Our net position at the end of the year from a utilities budget is good, but the mix within it, because of the way the credits are being delivered, has required tweaking. So that it's a really difficult process to get N-Grid to rearrange those. So we've done it once. We will do it again because again, it's not even, and it's not helpful the way it's happening. But it's a lot better than it was, and we will improve it. But in the meantime, we want to make sure the budget's appropriately reflecting that condition.
I think that's all the questions I had for now. Thank you.
Mr. Domenici?
Thank you. I will, of course, also echo my colleagues, Jim and Rob, on saying how difficult a year this is in order to even get any semblance of a budget with such a big unknown as what the state funding will be. And I am fortunate that we are, of course, in, with seemingly better shape than maybe some of our neighbors are. And I, also for the council, for the decisions that they had to make on the budget, my concerns are only this. I understand that, we're not getting the funding for the stabilization fund this year as it stands, meaning let's figure out what happens with state funding and then, under it, as if they can, they will bring it back. And that's what was stated. And I appreciate that. We didn't use those funds last year. My concerns are simply for a need of potentially needing to use more this year because of such an impact on our special education students over these last 3 months. I just have concerns if there's going to be additional supports needed that may be requiring additional services out of the district. It's not a question that can really be answered right now. It's just a concern that I have, and I just wanted to state it. Something that I would be watching closely. And, of course, if, if Yvonne has, no concerns about that, I'll feel better, but it's just something I have been thinking about. There's been a lot of impact even to, to every student. But I always worry about our most vulnerable and whether or not, depending upon how things go in 2 months, what we're looking at. So just a concern I have, but also an appreciation for all the effort on account of everybody to get us to a budget that we can hopefully feel comfortable with when the state funding comes in.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Any other questions? One question I guess I had is what discussion, if any, there's been among the administration, the school administration, and also with the city if the state number comes in a lot less than what we're hoping for, or if it, looking at things on the bright side, if things are better than I think what people are fearing from a state perspective with funding.
I can take an initial stab at that. We did talk about both scenarios. The city has assured us that state funding to the schools, Chapter 70, if for some reason it goes beyond what the governor proposed in January, that we would receive those funds. So we're very happy about that. I think the mayor regularly expressed a commitment to, using all of the fiscal resources he has at hand to address a shortfall. So I think that, again, the drastic cuts going in excess of Attleboro's capacity, there's, I don't know if there's a way to plan for that. We're certainly prepared to address the staffing implications of that once a number comes in, if it's of that magnitude, but we don't have a formal list of people who we would lose in that event because we don't know what the magnitude of that number would be.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, Mr. Furtado, I know last week when we were initially talking about potential plans, Mr. Sawyer confirmed, I believe, that it's not so much that we're implementing a hiring freeze at this point, so much as kind of slowing down hiring processes for filling positions or potential new positions. Looking, I don't remember what was discussed about early retirement, but a lot of those plans are still possible, right?
It's in place. We have posted positions, and positions, frankly, that we need for enrollment purposes as anticipated. So we have not brought new personnel in because we don't know. We strongly suspect, but don't know what our budget is. So that is solidly being adhered to, and it will be until we we get a sense of what the magnitude of the problem is.
And you had also commented that that if the Chapter 70 money that we get is higher than what we anticipate, we would be able to get those funds. So can you, I want to confirm what you mean by that, but I don't know how to phrase how to confirm what you mean by that. So
Sure. So
you could expand.
the governor in January proposed Chapter 70 funding that was at about $42 million, plus or minus. If it comes at the end of the whole process, believes 43 million will work, we'll get that $1 million in our budget.
Yeah. So go ahead.
The city's component of our budget is a commitment the city's not going to change.
So in other words, the city wouldn't then reduce its contribution by that $1 million.
Right.
That $1 million would just, okay, perfect. That's thank you. Yep.
Mr. Domenici?
Yeah, I apologize. I did actually have a question. Mark, I know we only met last week, but has there been any potential change in any decisions that may impact the amount of funding we may be returning back to the city at the end of our budget year this year?
Yeah, no, not yet. We are right now. The budget stands at about $1,080,000 left in it. We had been saying 1.2 to 1.5, since May. So we've got about $1.5 million of encumbrances that have to be relieved. And again, as I said at the meeting, the big ones we know are spent. That money is going to be spent. So the marginal return on what's left in the encumbrances is going to be small. So we're going to be right at about that 1.2 million with 7 in transportation, 7-ish. Again, we're still closing out POs there, and $500,000 in operating. Just as we said last time.
Thank you. That was my question.
Any other questions? All right. Mr. Furtado, I'm just looking at the budget that was sent over. I just want to make sure we have the correct number that will be voted on, and that's a proposed budget of $81,795,620.46.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay. At this time, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2021, $81,795,620.46.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Mr. Domenici?
So I think I'm supposed to do this right. Though I will be voting on the budget, I have to recuse myself from the portion of the budget associated with paraprofessionals.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll just, before I take.
Turned and muted himself.
I don't know why my phone does it automatically. I want to thank the administration for putting this together with the city administration in what's an unusually difficult time. I would, remind everyone that while I think we, understandably, with COVID kind of taking control this year, expect this to be a tight year going forward. It's not the best time for this to be happening when we're trying to eke by and make returns to where we were before major cuts a few years ago. But that being said, I think we all know it could be worse. So I want to thank the administration for putting this together as they have. And with that, I will go ahead and call the roll. And I am going to recuse myself from the portion of the budget that pertains to AEA salaries. And other than that, we'll vote yes. Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Domenici?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes, I'm also recusing myself from the AEA salary portion.
Thank you. Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. The motion passes, the budget passes. Thank you again to the administration for putting that together. And just real quick, I'm going to pull up the agenda. Next on the agenda, we have the minutes from the June 22nd, 2020 meeting. Those minutes were circulated with your materials. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or corrections or edits? Ms. Johnson?
Under the roll call for executive session, there's just some minor typos regarding titles on some of the members. So if we could just make those edits going forward.
Oh, and what are those edits, just so we can know, so we can vote on them?
For Mr. Stores or Ms. Stores and Ms. Domenici.
Oh, Mr. Got it. All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes with the correction to the title for all committee members. I will call the roll if there's no other questions. All right. Ms. Sawyer,
Yes.
Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Domenici,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Geddes,
Yes.
Mr. Stores,
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. All right. The last item on our agenda tonight is open forum. I do not see any participants in the meeting tonight other than our school committee members. So I will close open forum and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, there was a consent agenda item as well. I can read that for you if you need me to.
If you wouldn't mind, just because I have an old version in front of me
It is-
here.
It is a motion to accept a donation in the amount of $750, check number 26403 from Rachel Santos to the Attleboro Public School District Gifts and Donations line.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Stores,
Yes.
Mr. Geddes,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Domenici,
Yes.
Mr. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Hill, Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other any other business before the school committee tonight? No. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Oh, you're muted again, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Stores,
Yes.
Mr. Geddes,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Domenici,
Yes.
Mr. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Porto,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.